When we think of mixing tools, we quickly lean towards EQ, compression, limiting, saturation, but rarely do we consider reverb. Today I'm going to be showing you how to use this free plugin right here and a couple of others to help bring your tracks to life. Hey, what's up everybody? It's Noise here at Boombox, the home of collaboration. Every couple of weeks, we're doing a competition where you get to submit your tracks to either me or another big-time engineer. So before we crack on, make sure you check the link in the description below and follow our Instagram for updates on when you can have a chance to enter.
First off, I want to say congratulations to Blair Stewart. You are the winner and your track is the one I'm going to be using for today's video. He sent his amazing track in, Heal My Heart.
Heal my heart to love again.
Now, Blair Stewart, also known as Flows, left some timestamp feedback. Now, this is one that caught my eye/ear, not sure on the separation of the parts in frequency. And then we've got the second one here, transition into the drop, but chords could be too loud. And this last one here, which is not sure the full weight of the bass is needed here. So I did go through and mix these parts, but what I wanted to focus on, like I mentioned before, is how I'm using a reverb to enhance Blair's mix. Let's start with the drums. There they are dry, and here they are with processing. They sound great, but I wanted to bring them to life, add more of that warehousey sound. You see where I'm going with this. So I sent the drums to a bus, opened up the Valhalla Supermassive, and then selected the preset from reverbs, small reverbs, brass, blat, and this is the edit that I came up with. The mix is at 100% because this is on a send, delay at 50 milliseconds, really short delay here, and then warp at 100%. So the warp affects the time between the delays, which can make the echoes sound really weird and even turn them into a reverb. Let's listen to this at full blast by itself. So it's giving me this pushed back room reverb with this slightly flanger feel to it, which is going to add a lot of character to those drums. Now I'm using this as a room reverb to make it feel as if the drums are all recorded within one room. Sometimes when drums are taken from different sample packs, they have slightly different reverbs on them, which means that it can leave them feeling a bit disconnected. So I'm going to mix this in, we're going to push it too far, and then we're going to pull it back to where I think it should be. It's subtle, but we can hear it adding that room and sustain. Now, one of the issues is I don't want that sustain, but I do want the effect of the room. So what I've done is I've actually sent the drums and the room reverb to the same bus, and then on that bus, I'm using an SPL transient designer, and I've added attack and I'm taking away sustain. So I'm adding more punch, and I'm also taking away some of that release, some of that room on both the dry and the wet signal together. This allows me to hold on to that nice and tight upfront feel whilst adding character. Let's take a listen to the synths. On the synths, I'm adding a more obvious reverb. So I just dialed this in myself. These are the default settings. We've got 90.8 milliseconds, 30% on the warp, lots of feedback, hardly any density, mix all the way up. And I'm using this as a regular medium length reverb, medium length being 1 to 2 seconds long. And the sound already has a bunch of sidechain on it, but I'm adding more of that sidechain feeling by adding it to the reverb as well. And this by itself sounds like this. Which I think adds a bunch of character to the synth. Check it out. Reverb doesn't have to be obvious. It can add a lot of character without the listener actually knowing that it's there. What's really cool about the Valhalla Supermassive is because the parameters are so adjustable and so easily adjustable, you can get it to do a bunch of different things, including making sounds wider. So what I've done here is I loaded up the preset called Synth Wider in Synth. And again, dialed up to 100% because it's on Ascend. And I just dialed this in to give the synth a little more width, make it come to life. It just felt like it was a bit too tucked in before. You'll notice that I always dial in too much and then bring it back and listen to it in context to see how it's sitting with the rest of the parts. Let's go to the vocal for a second. So here it is dry.
Love again, heal my heart to love again, heal my heart.
I love the choppiness of it, but I was thinking to myself, how can we glue those parts together a little bit more, again, without it being too obvious? So I first set up Supermassive at 100%, with no feedback, no warp, no nothing, basically as clean as possible with a 30-second delay. Now, the reason for this 30-second delay is to create some pre-delay like you would usually have on a reverb. Now, we don't have pre-delay on the Supermassive, so I had to do it with a separate instance of Supermassive first in the chain.
Love again, heal my heart to love again, heal my heart to love again.
By itself, it just sounds like a slapback delay. Next, I actually did add a reverb preset. This is called 80s Space Verb. Check it out.
Love again, heal my heart to love again, heal my heart.
Now, I like this. It was a little invasive, but we're going to deal with that in a second. A plugin that I really enjoy adding after reverbs is OTT. Why? Because it extends the tail of the reverb in this slightly superficial way, which I think sounds quite nice and contemporary. I know this is a very classic housey track, but it's nice to have some contemporary elements in there to make it stand out.
Love again, heal my heart to love again, heal my heart to love again, heal my heart.
Kind of smooths it out. Note how I actually brought down the high frequency dial by quite a lot, and that's because OTT tends to enhance the high frequencies so much that it sounds brittle and harsh. I'll show you what I mean.
Love again, heal my heart to love again, heal my heart to love again, heal my heart.
When that dial is turned all the way up, it actually gets in the way of the vocal and it's distracting. I don't want the reverb to be too distracting. What I want it to do is gel to the original vocal. Now, finally in this chain, I added a compressor. Why? Because I want some side chaining to the vocal. So the compressor is on the vocal. I'm then feeding the vocal into the compressor so it's reacting to the vocal signal. And every time the dry vocal is prominent or increases in volume, the compressor is going to duck the reverb and bring it down in volume.
Love again, heal my heart to 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 love again.
Now what's happening here is the reverb is becoming more apparent in those empty spaces, but it's not getting in the way of the vocal when it's dry, therefore creating that nice glue in those gaps. Now I want to come back to Blair's point here. Transition into the drop, the chords could be too loud. Now, I don't necessarily think that the chords are too loud at that point. There's not that much going on, so they need to be prominent. Otherwise, there's not really going to be anything there. And I kind of like it when some parts are obnoxious. However, I did think that the chords going back into the drop at the end of the breakdown weren't really doing much for me. Check it out. Now, let me show you what I did. I created this mega effect which sounds so cool, all with the Valhalla Supermassive. First of all, we have the mix increasing exponentially. Now, because this is on the channel rather than on a send, it's there as an insert, it compromises the dry signal. So we're losing that dry sound and we're just starting to hear the affected one. Now, right before the song drops, you hear that pitch bend down. This is actually achieved by increasing the delay milliseconds. Just like when you slow down a vinyl player, it decreases in pitch. As it decreases in time, it decreases in tuning. It's a really easy way to create a tape stop effect and sounds awesome. And last but not least, I used the low cut within the Valhalla to create a filter style effect rather than just trying to add another EQ afterwards. And by cutting out the low frequencies, I was able to thin out this part of the synthesizer, so when it comes back in full force, not only is it dry, but it also has that low and low mid weight behind it. And there we hear everything cut back in to its dry, original self. Let's hear it in context. So a big thanks to Boombox for providing us with this amazing platform where I was able to really easily read Blair's timestamp feedback comments and apply everything that he wanted to the mix. And a huge thanks to Blair for providing us with his track. Links to both Boombox and Blair are in the link in the description below. Don't forget that you can also enter this competition twice a month where you can get your track mixed and mastered for free. I'm Noise London and this is Boombox, the home of collaboration. I'll see you very soon.